Sonic Frontiers released on November 7th, 2022, and when I played this game for the first time, I absolutely loved it. The exciting Titan fights, free open zone movement, tons of platforming to do, the combat system, and the cyberstage speedrunning were all things I liked about the game. It has been 3 years since then, and suddenly I had the itch of coming back to this game and giving it another go. So fast forward to today, I finally completed Sonic Frontiers once again, and I have some thoughts that have since then changed regarding what I once liked or disliked. So with that out of the way, sit back, grab a snack or two, and let's jump right into Sonic Frontiers. The main selling point that Sonic Frontiers goes for is mainly the open zone environments and running around the islands, and the best comparison I can give to this is like a kingdom from Mario Odyssey. Each island is its own open zone, and with that comes fast-paced platforming, which can either be 2D or 3D, but most importantly, let's talk about Sonic himself and how he controls. The way that Sonic feels in this game is quite interesting, as there's no exact definitive control for him thanks to these sliders you can adjust in the menu. I honestly enjoy running around the open zone, specifically in Ares Island, because of how connected some of the platforming parts can be. This ends up in a lot of floating platformers throughout the island for you to go around, which is good and all until you notice a small little issue. The pop-in in Frontiers is just really bad. It doesn't matter you're playing on the Switch, on PC, on next-gen consoles, or really current-gen for that matter, but that's not the point. The pop-in is really bad, and it's very disorienting seeing like so many things pop in at once, especially considering that you're traveling really fast, and boom, all of a sudden a whole bunch of platforms just pop in for no reason, and it's very distracting. It's tolerable in the main game, but in the DLC, I think it's a lot worse, but that's a topic for another video. I don't mind the open zone idea here. The best I can say about it is that it works and can be fun to run around. The things that you can do on these islands is fighting mini bosses or guardians as the game puts it. Cyberspace levels, which are supposed to be memories of Sonic's adventures, or in other words, levels ripped straight from other games, such as 1-4 with it being similar to Generations Green Hill Act 2. Starfall nights happen from time to time. These respawn enemies and have Starfall events which can allow you to gamble. I only got this once in my most recent playthrough, so I never got to fully take advantage of it. You have a lottery wheel which can get you purple coins for fishing, and speaking of that, there are also purple coins which can be used for fishing with Big the Cat. Neat, I suppose. Fishing here will buy you these tokens that you can exchange for rewards like medals, gears, keys, and so on. Speaking of the medals, this is the way that you proceed through the story. You collect these through doing platforming and through buying them from fishing. Each island has these, and they have a different design for each character. I think this is an okay progression system, but it does start to become a bit tedious as you progress the game, as you'll need about 200 of these by the end of the game on the last island. I also want to talk about the puzzles that the game provides. Now, on a first time playthrough, this is great for unlocking the map and shows you where certain things are. That's fine, but why have so many of them throughout the game? There can be 25 to 30 in each island, and that makes it pretty tedious too, because I would prefer there maybe be 10 per island and make them a little more challenging, because some of these quests are so easy that even a toddler could do them. I see them as nothing more than fetch quests, and some of these may have a night only symbol where you have to wait until nighttime to do one of these puzzles. Something to know is that you can't set the time to day or night in the menu, so you must wait in real time for the game to cycle over to the night. If you could switch between day and night, then I wouldn't have a problem, but it is a strange decision not being able to switch from day to night in the menu, so it's whatever, I guess. Speaking of the day and night cycle, I appreciate the game doing it. It's a cool addition considering that the cutscenes also show the day and night cycle experience. You can fight bosses at night as well, and it won't affect your gameplay much. So the day and night cycle is a thing I really like being here in Sonic Frontiers and can really take the time to appreciate. Cyberspace stages are memories of Sonic's past, in which these are treated as separate levels from the open zone. Some levels are ripped from older games, such as Sonic Adventure 2, with 2-6 being similar to Skyrail, 1-4 like I said before with it being similar to Green Hill Generations, and this level mainly being ripped from Rooftop Run Unleashed Act 2. At the end of each level, there are missions that you can complete to earn yourself some keys, one for completing the level, one for earning an S rank, one for completing the level with a certain number of rings, and one for collecting all the red rings found within a level. There's a bonus key if you complete all the missions, so you can earn up to a total of 5 keys, in which then you use to unlock Chaos Emerald. Some of these stages can end up to be really challenging, such as the infamous 1-2 where you must clear it in under 55 seconds, and that level is really difficult to get an an S rank on, but generally speaking, a lot of the cyberspace levels are easy to S rank with a few exceptions. Since a lot of levels are ripped from older games, there are not many original levels, but one of the levels that seemed to be original I thought was the best in the game, and that was 4-4. It is a genuinely good level with nice platforming, fast-paced platforming, and enemies that come at you. I consider it to be the best cyberstage level in the entire game, not including DLC. There were some levels that sucked, such as this 2D level where all you do is rug grind in 2D, and it just felt really slow. This level where they brought back drifting, well, drifting in quotation mark, it didn't really feel very good. And speaking of not feeling good, Sonic himself controls differently compared to how he feels in the open zone. He can't really take any tight turns and his speed is limited, which sure makes sense that it could break the game, but I don't know why they made Sonic control like shit in cyberspace. He controls perfectly fine in the open zone, so why bother making the change in the cyberspace levels? He doesn't feel as smooth or nice to control as, and sure, the level design is pretty linear to match that control set, but it still didn't feel too good to control Sonic in my opinion. So anyways, let's just move on with the story. The story of Sonic Frontiers was one I enjoyed. I really liked the character interactions between Sonic and the rest of the cast. Seeing the Titans introduced was a really cool way to set the tone of how powerful each Titan is, and that was really cool to see. The Coco were a neat little creature to see and they look cute. Something that was a big change heading into Frontiers was the voice cast. Now, I remember seeing leaks about Sonic having a deep voice and I was excited about it because that high-pitched voice that was in the other games was never really my cup of tea. I still think the Sonic Boom series was the best iteration of Roger Craig Smith, and in Sonic Frontiers, I think the deep voice suits Sonic here. He sounds like an adult rather than someone in their teens.
Looks like I'm the only one who made it out of that. Whatever it was. Oh well. Some direction is better than none. Here we go.
The other characters also have deeper voices, and it works really well with Knuckles especially, so I think that was pretty good. The whole thing about Sonic's corruption was really interesting until a power of friendship happened, making it anticlimactic. Sage was a good antagonist and is an interesting character. I do wish Eggman was more involved since he had a few scenes and didn't really do much, but overall I really enjoyed the writing and the story and I was invested in it. The character interactions were great, the lore was nice to learn about, and overall it was a pretty good story, but that's all I have to say about it. So with that out of the way, I'll move into the combat, Guardians, and Titans. There are Guardians you fight in each island, in which defeating these will earn you gears, so you can use them to unlock cyberspace levels. This is where I can get into the combat and talk about the Guardians themselves, starting with the combat. I don't like it, and here's why. But before I explain why, I'll go into what Sonic's moves are and what the combat has to offer. The combat is pretty simple to understand, with X being the main button for attacking. You can also dodge through pressing LB and RB, and quick step when running pressing those same buttons. If you hold both LB and RB simultaneously, you can parry, and parrying can be held for as long as you want, so it doesn't feel rewarding and more so feels like a get out of jail free card. There are more skills you unlock, as there is a skill tree that you use to earn new abilities to add to Sonic's arsenal. There's the stomp, the Sonic boom kick, a diagonal zigzag like attack, and so on. Each of these require different button inputs to activate, so you can mix it up in each battle. So what exactly did make me like the combat of Sonic Frontiers? Well, for starters, it's pretty slow. When using an ability, the animation takes a long time to start up and finish. The camera also closes in on Sonic for a cinematic look to it, but at times this can be annoying because I want to get straight to the next move. Now granted, you can turn it off, so at least there's that. If the animations were sped up and each move had more fluidity to them in terms of being able to go from one move to the next, then I would like the combat a lot more. There's no really combos here, as each fight feels repetitive. You fight for a little bit, parry, punish, repeat. There's no depth to this combat, and I get that this isn't a hack and slash like Devil May Cry or a beat 'em up like Yakuza, but you could have had some combo input, but because Sonic controls freely, there's likely not much room to work with in terms of making combo inputs. So in short, the combat is slow and clunky, feels repetitive, and just isn't satisfying to pull off any moves. Moving on with the Guardians, they are scattered throughout the island, and in Kronos Island you'll fight Asura, Ninja, and Squid. Asura is a pretty cool boss to introduce Kronos Island. The game has you ascend its arms and take them down one by one. As the fight progresses, it becomes challenging to ascend in all, and the music does change, which is a really nice touch. It's kind of like a tutorial boss, but one that's done really well. Ninja is a tutorial boss that also teaches the basics of dodging, parrying, and such. It has simple attacks, but again, it's a tutorial fight, so it works out in the end. Of course, there are different bosses for each island, and they are different. For the most part, I think the Guardians are pretty cool to fight with a few exceptions, notably the Tower, Strider, Shark, Tank, and Spider. These fights aren't exactly fighting them, more so you sit through a spectacle and have minimal inputs like quick time events or rail grinding. Shark is a bunch of quick time events, and Tower can be cheesed pretty easily. Spider, you're skydiving for most of the fight and have to sit through that every time you fight it. Those are the Guardians I thought weren't good, but the rest are solid for me, so I think the Guardians are decent in this game. When it comes to platforming in this game, it's pretty good for the first 2 islands since it's 3D and you get a lot of room to run around it with both Kronos and Ares Island until you reach Chaos Island, and that's when the platforming starts to blow because Sonic's team just says fuck you and makes nearly everything 2D platforming. Sonic controls differently in 2D, so he's a lot slower to make platforming easier for the player. I don't mind 2D platforming from time to time, but when it takes up most of the platforming in Chaos or Uranos Island, then I have a problem. When running around in these 2 islands, you may accidentally end up in 2D suddenly. I don't know why they changed it up when it was perfectly fine in Ares and Kronos Island. There's this saying, if it isn't broken, then don't fix it. Rhea Island has the best platforming in the game, in which you ascend 6 towers with some challenging platforming to boot. I really enjoy that part of the game in terms of the platforming, and there's enemies to fight, balloons to hit, switches to activate, which all adds to make the platforming fun. Aside from the excessive 2D platforming the game does in the last few islands, I think the platforming is solid, and I still had some fun doing the platforming. But there were a couple bad apples. Platforming aside, if there's one thing that absolutely made me love this game were the Titan fights, and I have to say they're exciting in a spectacle case. Something I really liked about each Titan was their introduction, especially Giganto. He literally spawns in out of nowhere and imposes its will to Sonic because of its sheer size. I always liked the Shadow of the Colossus thing where you're a tiny being fighting things 100 times bigger than you. With the Titans, it was really cool introducing them, and the music that plays while doing these scripted events is great. I really like the way they are shown to be powerful by basically putting Sonic down like it's nothing. The music that plays while Sage is telling Sonic to run in the sequence of Sonic trying to attack Giganto is just great. I really like how it's done. Wyverns is done through a running section and he's firing missiles at you, and that's also a really cool scripted event, so I can give credit where credit is due. Night has a cool thing going for it as you're running away from it using the Squid boss fight as a floating lane, but then it turns into a 2D section, so it killed all the tension for me. Supreme doesn't really have one because at that point of the story you're rushing to get the Chaos Emeralds, and Sonic knowing he has to run for his life while he is in Supersonic and the sequences where you play those is one of my favorite parts of Sonic Frontiers. In each island you collect the Chaos Emeralds, and once you've collected 6, you must ascend on top of the Titan to get the final Chaos Emerald and finally fight the Titan. These Titan fights are really exciting since it's the first time you are required to play a Supersonic in a 3D game since Sonic Generations. Holy shit. Anyway, these fights are exciting and you get to wreak havoc on the Titans with some kick-ass music sung by Kellen Quinn. The spectacle of these fights are still pretty good, albeit the jankiness of this game has shown over the years, but I still got excited when fighting a Titan. Giganto is a great introduction to the Titan fight as he has simple attacks you can parry, and you also retain the combat that you've been using, so you fight the Titan with amplified moves of Sonic's moveset. I think this works because it gives Supersonic's attacks that extra oomph that it needs with the added details. You can also side loop these bosses and they each have a unique animation of how Sonic does an ultimate attack, in which Giganto's case you can slam him to the ground, which is badass. It's a great first fight and was exciting. Quick time events return and are a nice addition to make these fights a lot more exciting. You can either mash the X button or spin the left stick so you don't hurt your thumb. It's a great first fight and just a blast to come back to. Wyvern is definitely the weakest out of all of these, mainly because you actively are chasing down and that's it. The worst part about this fight is the sequence ascending to Wyvern's head, since you must go through this running section and that's pretty much automated, and let's say you were either to fall off or die, I believe you had to do it all over again, so yay. The fight itself is okay as you're chasing Wyvern down while avoiding missiles, and parrying those missiles allows you to get right into Wyvern's face and parry its attacks. Once you successfully parry those attacks, you can go ham on it, side loop it, and and do whatever. The thing where Sonic spins Wyvern around and throws it to the mountains is pretty sick. The rest of the fight is pretty boring until you reach the QTEs, where they start to pop up more often and are nice to do successfully since it feels satisfying. The finisher is also a really nice spectacle, but I'm pretty sure a lot of people can agree with me that Wyvern is the weakest Titan fight out of all of the Titans, and is also just really janky as well. Knight is easily the best Titan fight in the game, as you're in an enclosed arena. Similar to the Giganto fight in Chronos, Knight itself puts up its shield, and if you attack it enough times, it parries you and you do a QTE and end up mounting its shield towards it. You can also move around his shield and attack him directly, so you don't have to sit through that every time. Parrying his attacks makes him put up his shield as well, so you can also just spam the X button. The second phase is a bit different, with you parrying his shield and throwing it at him. Then there's the ultimate attack, where Sonic topples Knight to the ground, uppercuts Knight, and then slams his ass to the ground. Like, that's aura on Sonic. The finisher, with Sonic kicking the sword back and using the Knight's sword against it, yeah, that boss fight was pretty peak. The last Titan fight is Supreme, and I'm going to be honest, this one sucked big time. It honestly felt like a Giganto reskin. So Supreme is supposed to have some kind of gun cannon that he shoots Sonic with, and these little pellets spawn in as well. The first half of the fight, easy and nothing crazy. When Supreme transitions into its second phase, it has a really nice guitar riff playing, and the Titan is growing wings, showing off its aura, and I'm like, oh shit, this is about to get heated. Next thing you know, I don't even see the wings in game. Supreme flies around Uranos, and you attack him some more, and then the game leads you to a QTE where you dodge one bullet and that's it. Come to find out, modders were able to pull up a cut Supreme fight where he was more aggressive in that specific QTE, which was scrapped in the final game. So I don't know why they proceeded without this cut QTE, as it looked really cool. So after that, you head into space for one final battle. If you're playing on hard mode, that is. So rather than some true amazing final fight that lives up to the hype, instead we get another Ikagura bullet hell like minigame. Now I'll admit this is a difficult boss fight since it's bullet hell. I'm not the biggest fan of bullet hell gameplay, but it can be fun when it's done right. But this isn't the context I would use it in, but at least let me say some nice things about it. The music, for one, is incredible, and I mean, this is great. The track feels like a perfect true final fight, and it feels very like a Sonic final boss. The monologue that the end gives is actually pretty good. However, it's hard to hear what it's saying because you're also hearing the music, you're also trying to avoid everything, and it just kind of muffles out. So you gotta focus on everything dodging at you. So that's fun. It's almost like a scripted fight, if I'm being honest, since the fight drags on for quite a bit. After clearing the bullet hell phase, you must do a couple of QTEs to finish the end off and finish the game. So that was Sonic Frontiers, alright. And I have to say, when I first played the game, when it came out, I rated it an 8 out of 10. I absolutely loved the game and thought it was amazing. But over the years, recency bias wore off, and now that I've revisited it, I'd give it a 7 out of 10. There are a couple of flaws that prevent it from going any higher for me. I don't think Frontiers is a bad game by any means, but I can say I was having fun for a few parts of the game. And where it fell off was in Chaos Island and Uranos Island. Those two islands just don't do it for me in terms of platforming and running around. At least Rayo was short and had some good platforming segments, so I can give him credit for that. The game overall feels like a tech demo in some areas, but Frontiers did have some good qualities, and that's all I'll say about Sonic Frontiers. Anyways, that is the end of this video, and if you have made it this far, so why not like this video, hit subscribe, and turn on that bell for future uploads. My next video will be talking about the DLC updates and the Final Horizon side story, so until then, enjoy yourselves and have a good one.